So because the world is, I would say, a mix of 50-50. 50% people speak up and 50% don't. Probably more people don't speak up because we've been taught to be nice everywhere. We actually say that if you have to bridge a gap of communication between two parties, on the bridge, on the pillars of respect, you make a road of empathy and then send your vehicle of authenticity to the other side. And only when you put all these three elements, then the communication is bridged, and then you have a space to evolve, space to collaborate and do other things. And so my primarily I wrote it uh, for leaders who are leading teams. And so at least that's how all the examples and the case studies and stories have been on. And but even so primarily for leaders who have teams and who either have to ensure that the conflicts among their team members is resolved by empowering rather than them coming in. So one key thing which I have learned is whenever there is an issue, increase bonding rather than running away from it. Lean in, lean in and take some actions. And I think that has always worked. And you act despite the fear, act in spite of the fear, whatever you call it.
All right. Rohan, good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm glad to be here with you.
From the big smile on your face, you look like someone who's just written an amazing book. Let's see it.
So this is the book.
Awesome. Can you get it closer to the camera? All right. I can see two Rohan Singals now on the screen. Excellent. Okay, one's looking pretty dapper in a suit and everything. So you've obviously photoshopped that image.
No, I think it was photographed on in 2019 June, and since then I have put on a lot more. I can say obviously, but the background was Photoshop. Yes.
Listen, 2019 June is not too far away in the past, and you look exactly like you do that, except for the suit. So fantastic. And I'm going to do something a little different here. Mostly in these kind of conversations, at the end of it, we tell people what the website is, when the book is out, and everything. But I want us to address two people who are listening to this right now, one of whom is going to drop a dumbbell on his phone in the next minute, and the second who's going to have his phone die out because it's on 1% charge. So for those two people, would you mind telling us when the book is out, where one gets it, and what's the best website to know more about you and to know more about the book?
Okay, so the book is out in April 2021, but book is open to pre-order right now, and the book is available on www.highconflict, HICONFLICT, BYE by conflict, CONFLICT. So highconflictbyconflict.com. And to know more about me and my work, you can go to www.rohansingal.com. So ROHANSINGAL.com.
Excellent. So yeah. rohansingal.com, and if I were to act this out, it's like high conflict by conflict.
Yes.
Sounds good. Excellent. And April, but it's open for pre-order right now. And is it open for pre-order on Amazon, somewhere else?
Yeah.
What's the best place for someone to pre-order?
On the same on the book website itself, the order links are there. And
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Super. Now that we've addressed those two people, let's talk about the rest of us. Like, why a book? And why now? So tell us the story of how this book came to be.
So see, last 10-12 years I've been doing these leadership workshops, and a lot of places people said that, can you get your message to other people who are not part of your workshop? So, and we'll write the book one day. So that kept happening for a long time. And I think I think one time comes when you have to really bring it out, and all the other events in your life points to it. So that's how this book came up, and I think it was overdue in some sense, but I'm quite glad that it is. I feel very complete now that the book is out.
It feels good. We can see that in your face. I mean, it feels good. Yes.
Hmm.
So it's 2021 now. If you were to hazard a guess, when did and you did mention that this has been festering in your head for some years now. When did it first come to be? When you thought, when the germ of an idea of I need to write a book.
Hmm.
When did that first happen?
So I think for this particular book, I would say that somewhere 3 years back, where two things happened together. So one is that that I had actually a kind of a profiling was done of mine, and I noticed that the need to please people was still very high. So I was thinking that I've after teaching so many things to so many leaders, why do I still keep this need for pleasing high, which is a detrimental for any leader, which I can also tell others. And so that high rating set me thinking that I should instead of avoiding, so you can say that I have this 40 years experience of avoiding conflicts, running away from conflicts, not speaking up when needed, because I wanted to make everyone happy around me since childhood. And so that point is, I read a book called I think Hostage at the Table by one FBI negotiator, and somewhere there something shifted, that it is time to embrace conflict rather than avoid it. And I think that book, I would say 3 4 years back, the book was a part where I started looking at authenticity in whatever I do, and I started learning it. So that was a start. And I think it got triggered further when my marriage, which was a love marriage, and I thought it was going at the best rate, and 9 on 10 would what I would rate. And it came one day, one night, I realized when I came back home that it has really gone to rocks. Or and that point of time, instead of avoiding that conflict where my wife was really saying that I was planning to walk out of the marriage, instead of running out, running away, keeping quiet, trying to please her, I just switched, I stepped back, and then I simply shared what authentically what was going on in my head. And that shifted our whole dynamics, and we could resolve and then discuss a lot more things, which so we actually learned and handled a lot of elephants in the room over next few days. So this combined with, and then I started experimenting this handling elephants in the rooms framework in my corporate workshops, because even in the corporate world there are a lot of elephants. And actually I noticed that right in the session itself, people could resolve something which was not resolved for many months or years. And that pushed me that you should write. And another history goes back is that I used to run a software company between 2006 to 2009, and we were three promoters, and other two were very assertive, so-called assertive people, and I was the over pleasing kind. And bottom line, what happened was they used to come up with strategies which I didn't agree, but I didn't speak up. So we were three misaligned leaders, and we had to sell out the company at a really throwaway price. And I used to blame them for having sabotaged the company. And now when I look back 3 years back, I said, oh, I played a big role. And rather than speaking up or walking out of the company, I kept being in that seat without speaking. And I realized this behavior can sabotage any team anywhere. And I've seen this happening in the corporate world a lot, where someone doesn't speak up, where they have a different idea. And that these three things together, pushed me to write this book, so that teams don't fail just because someone didn't speak or someone was aggressive. So I think that is a long and short
Wow,
answer.
that's a pretty powerful answer if you ask me. I mean, it's I knowing you, I knew a bit about a couple of these instances, but not in as much detail as you just said. It's kind of obvious the book was born out of personal pain of sorts,
Yeah,
and I
very
think
true.
that
Yeah.
angst comes through in places, which is a good thing if you ask me, because it's not just a theoretical framework and stuff. It's always you can see that you poured a lot into it. And in parallel, it was also born out of literally the corporate trenches, because you mentioned that it was born out of a lot of workshops that you've been doing for the last 10 years. And I think that was best exemplified by, first, thank you for sending me a preview of parts of the book. And I noticed that the foreword was written by Mahesh Madhavan, the CEO of Bacardi India. And he talks a lot about workshops that you've conducted and different roles and facilitation programs that you've had for his team. You've got a lot of other people interviewed in the book as well.
CEO of Bacardi worldwide now. He was here
okay.
at that time. Now he heads the entire Bacardi worldwide. So one correction. Yeah.
So that's a side benefit of doing a workshop with you, is it? I mean, one gets a global role. Just putting it out there. That's amazing. So it feels like, based on that and some of the other interviews that you allude to in the book with leaders of various kinds of companies and shapes and flavors, that besides the personal anecdotes, and I'm glad to hear that you went past that, and your marriage and everything was in the personal life and is also in a much better space. Is it fair to say that all those workshops, all those conversations, all these things also had a huge role in shaping up the book to become what it is right now?
Yeah. In fact, what used to happen with every workshop, we used to have 4 teams, and we will actually ask each team to come up with individual areas where they have elephants still unresolved, and then they will follow this framework and resolve it right there. And we had a presentation where, and so a lot of angst came out. We actually figured out 60% or 70% of the conflicts are with bosses. So there were people who had issues with their previous boss. They left their job and did not resolve the elephant, and that elephant has been following them. And a similar issue is cropping up even in the current firm. And so I think I could relate more with people who didn't speak up, because I was that kind of person. But then I started relating also to the people to whom people are not speaking up, who are the over assertive kind of people. And I realize even they need some support or some perspective from the mind of the people who don't speak up. So because the world is, I would say, a mix of 50-50. 50% people speak up and 50% don't. Probably more people don't speak up because they've been taught to be nice everywhere. And so that is the answer.
Wow. You touched upon it, so I'm actually going to dive a little deeper into a couple of concepts that you talk about in the book, right? One of the core things, which is kind of there in the title as well, the title is High Conflict by Conflict, and you talk about conflict literally, transforming into collaboration. Right? It almost sounds like a corporate judo move, use the force of your opponent and transfer it. Give us a bit of a gist on that, on turning conflict into collaboration.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the overall context which I have now learned is that, see, one thing is normal appreciation, and how do you really evolve in life is you learn concepts, you practice things. So one is a simple way of learning which we all followed in college. What I've found later is all these conflicts, rejections, setback. That is where another mine of gift lies. And these conflicts are a solid lessons which probably we have lined up in our life to grow. Now, and I noticed that every time I avoided a conflict, I ran away from those lessons and insights. So first is, high conflict means welcoming the conflict, saying that bring it on, rather than avoiding it, which I earlier did. So once you welcome the conflict through your door, and then open it up, and then when you peel some layers of the conflict, then you find the gift of authenticity and collaboration in it. And once you find it, now it is like an Amazon pack. It was a bubble pack. Safely the insight was delivered to you, and now you can throw the bubble back or wave it by. And that is the whole whole idea. And why I would say that it is a judo move to pivot conflict to collaboration is that you have two kinds of a relationship. One is a very transaction relationship, that in my office you do your duty, I do my duty, and we don't interfere in each other's work. We be very fair to divide whatever are the proceeds. So that actually doesn't lead to a deeper relationship, because my connection would be as good as my last deal with you. So now what happens is, I didn't like something which you said, or you didn't like something which I said, and we didn't discuss about it. Then that elephant will come in, and now we'll see each other with that filter. Now when you start pointing to that elephant with respect and empathy and authenticity, then the respect of each other actually increases, and the guards come down, and the trust comes up, and the collaboration goes up. So in fact, even when I take it to my personal side, uh, after my this whole handling conflict with Ruchi, and we still have conflict, but every conflict now we handle it so neatly that out of the conflict the insights come, and our connection is really going to a new level. So that is the personal side, but same thing applies even with clients or bosses. So you have run a company, and if you see that a person is not speaking up, or there is an elephant in the room and no one is handling, versus anyone shows up and actually directly talks to you that I didn't like what you said this time, and this is what I felt, and this is what I learned. In all that discussion, the real collaboration comes in. You start trusting the person. You also know that I will get what I'm seeing. So uh, so that is the sum of, in that sense, that conflict is actually only a marker or a precursor to collaboration, but it's up to you whether you take that turn. Conflict is just a crossroad, but it actually, the road leads to collaboration or silence or drain of energy. So you have to choose where you go.
Which direction you steer at that intersection, I
Yes,
guess, right?
yes. And you can just stay there or avoid it and hope that someone else will take you there.
I love two broad things besides the concept of what you're talking about, of course. Two meta level things about it. One is your liberal use of analogies, which allow these things to sit in one's head a lot more. So, for example, that picture of holding a whole bunch of elephants, not just in the room but in your head, is a pretty powerful one. It's almost heavy onto itself. You talk about Amazon packaging that you need to rip out to get to the kernel of things. You talk about intersections where one needs to decide, play traffic police and decide which way one needs to go. And is that something one expects in the book as well? Is that something you've employed liberally in the book?
Yeah,
Just curious.
I think at quite a few places we've done that, and just what I have tried to, we've kept it light rather than being very prescriptive. That is the objective.
And the second point is really what I think is a it's kind of like the barometer of a good framework or a good idea when it doesn't need to be constrained to just the confines of the workplace. And over here, you're talking about lessons from here, or the model here being applicable not just to the workplace, but as you've talked about in a couple of instances, in your personal life as well. And to me, that is a true barometer of something where it doesn't just stop at the boundaries and confines of a workplace. So that's fantastic to hear, right? And since you've talked about it a little bit, I'm going to take the liberty of asking you the too long didn't read TLDR version of the book. That whole, not to preempt your answer, but the whole lend me your ear kind of model that you talk about. Can you talk a little bit more about it, since you just to place it in context?
So I think in summary, for the TLDR people, it is that EAR format, where E is empathy, where you really put yourself in others' shoes, and the fundamental thing of putting yourself in others' shoes is you have to get out of your own shoes. Technically you can't get into someone else's shoes without getting out of your shoes, but we don't do that. So my first part is really parking your own judgment, whatever anger you had, whatever you had about that person, parking it on the other side. We are not saying delete it, park it on the other side. Listen. So empathy is really listen to that person, what the person said, felt, and wanted, and then confirm with that person that I think this is what you are saying that you felt and wanted, and it still doesn't mean that I endorse what he said. So empathy is not endorsement. And second part of the empathy is grain of truth, which is that whatever that conflict or elephant is there, I did play some part in the mess. You cannot say 100% the other person was responsible, whether he was my junior, boss, client. You need two to tango. So I would have played some role. So in that part, genuinely searching in your heart, what role did you play in the mess? And the other person always knows it anyway. So you actually bring that out and share it with that person, that I think this is where I messed up, and I acknowledge, and probably that is why this is my role. It may not be the 100%. So this is the empathy part. Authenticity part is uh, authentically share your feeling. If you are angry, then instead of acting out, so acting out your anger is you are really shouting, or changing your body language, etc., based on the equation. Sharing is truly sharing that I am so upset by you that I have to fire you now. In next 10 minutes you have to leave the company. Do you want to resign, or you want me to fire you? You know, because I taught you so much and you had let me down like this, and or this was a breach of faith. So stating all of it without labeling, without changing the voice, keeping the professional respect for that person. So that is authenticity. Or the other side is, if I have done a mistake, rather than avoiding it, I actually talk to the person or the concerned stakeholder right as early as possible and share that I am very scared that I did this mistake, but I want you to know it from me, and maybe we can solve it. So that is the authenticity part. And the respect part is that in the conflict we forget every person on the other side who matter to us has done something which we admire and respect the person for. So this format is actually, you restate, what do I respect this person for, what do I admire. So we actually say that if you have to bridge a gap of communication between two parties, on the bridge, on the pillars of respect, you make a road of empathy, and then send your vehicle of authenticity to the other side. And only when you put all these three elements, then the communication is bridged, and then you have a space to evolve, space to collaborate and do other things. But if you miss any of that, if you're too respectful and empathy but you don't authentically share what is happening, that's what I did, then also nothing happens. If you just throw your vehicle to the other side, it will fall in the river in between, because you didn't connect. So you make connection by respect and empathy, and then send your point of view.
Nice. So it's all about infrastructure. You got pillars, you got highways, you got bridges, and you got roads. I love your analogies, by the way, as I
Yes.
mentioned. uh, I also noticed that you use a lot of these frameworks to guide your thinking, and obviously the workshops that you run over here. You talked about the EAR format, and not to detract too much from that in the core of the book, but I noticed, I can't recall if it was on your website or in some other conversation we had. It doesn't matter, but you talk about an ABI format on the personal domain separately as well, where, if I recall right, the A there stands for authenticity. As am I getting that right? Is that,
Yeah.
or
So
am I mixing up my analogies and metaphors?
I think that was, I wanted to make a mission statement. So I kept wondering. Then I said, okay, the mission is something longer. So put large numbers. So I make the mission as 1 million ABI. So it is that I want to impact and influence more than 1 million people over my lifetime. To A is enhance authenticity in their relationships, whether it is work or personal. B is bring out their best version. And I is they have inner immunity to be free from medicinal intervention or any other intervention. So that's how the
Correct.
ABI was. And it actually covers, you can actually say three things, success and wealth is one pillar, love is another pillar, and health is another pillar. So it actually would, in different ways, these three pillars will show up. You can give them different names.
Totally agree on that. I mean, I have my own version of three things
NPAT.
that we and NPAT is four, but within that there is three, right? We're juggling these three balls of health, relationships, and of money and finances and all of those things, and trying to figure out
Yeah.
how we balance all of those things. And I love some of the things you talked about. For example, I recalled this expression on empathy. It's our ability to step out of our own bubble and into the bubbles of other people, because that's fundamentally what it is, right? We're all living in our own little bubbles. I couldn't help but notice that, and I love your plan, in terms of impacting people, and presumably the book is one instrument of creating impact of the kind that you just described, right?
Yes.
The common thing to both those acronyms, EAR and ABI, is without being a rocket scientist, you can figure is A, which stands for authenticity. That seems to be super important for you. And if I may ask, based on what you said earlier and your focus on authenticity, the book is almost like a catharsis of sorts for you.
Yeah.
It's almost like the book was born in conflict.
So I'll tell you the different kind of conflicts I had in my life. So first childhood side was a middle class inferiority complex. That kind of a conflict on what should one do to come out of it. So the only way out was, just chase excellence and success. So excellence chasing means get into some good colleges. So I got into these IIT, IIM, then get some good ranks there because that was the easiest one.
Just to not to interrupt you, but that's a Rohan I remember first from 25, 30, more than 20. I won't betray our age, from a few decades ago when I first met you. So okay, that is a version I had seen, I assume then.
Yeah. So
Okay, please go on.
So chasing excellence and success, and as you chase success, the jealousy anyway comes in when you see other people successful and not you. So from there, and that chasing excellence and success also did not resolve this conflict of complexes inside. And then one of my mentors shifted me to start making other people winner. So I can actually say first 27 years of my life was all chasing excellence and success. Obviously you don't give up on chasing excellence and success, but that is not the main theme of your life. So then from there it shifted to making others winner. And I noticed that gave a very different high when you see you give a clue to someone and that person does something very well. And so what I also noticed, as I said, 3.5 years back, I noticed that while I was helping others to be winners, this part of me was still eating me that, why do you have to keep looking for people's approval? And so that is where I think the whole shift then came. So I can say last 3 years have been a journey which is still ongoing on daring to be authentic, daring to be authentic with people who matter, whether my colleagues, clients on the professional side or friends and in-laws and everyone else. Can I be truthful and authentic rather than making excuses, making small white lies? And over these 3 years, I noticed that you can live life without those lies as well as compromises. Because every lie and compromise at work or at home actually depletes your core central power. So if you say you have a ball of light inside you, each of these small lies will punch a hole in it. And when the power is high inside you, you can do anything. You'll have ideas, you'll be able to connect with clients well. And if it is low, you won't even feel like calling a person. And all of us know, I know people who are in sales would have gone through this, that that today if you make a call, if the call connects, you will mess it up because you deep inside know that there is no power inside. So that is the whole thing. I am now learning that only by being authentic in whichever situation you are, you conserve and build on this light which you were born with.
Makes sense. Yeah. And I can totally relate to that example on sales as well. There are days when you feel like it's not going to happen. I'm better off not making
Yeah.
that call and wasting this lead today, right? I
Yes.
can totally relate to that. Yeah. Actually, what you just said reminds me of another thing which I found interesting in your book, in terms of who you describe the book is for, right? So I'm going to address that in two ways. I mean, one is I'm going to, I think it's obvious, but I'd like you to talk about the kind of role designation that people hold who would benefit most from the book, and we'll come to that later. But first, I want to touch upon something that springboards from what you just said. Most books or most anything tend to have a target audience which is like a range, right? In classic media planning, it is, you say it is suburban housewives between 30 and 45. So there's a band, there's a range that you go after. What I found interesting is you have this thing in the book where you say that this book is written for two kinds of people primarily. People who are over agreeable, which sounds like almost like a version of what you were for those first 27 years and are still working on at times. And people are over assertive. This is not a range. These are polar opposites, right? Over agreeable is here and over assertive is here. So talk a little bit more about that before we segue into roles and designations. I'm curious about these two types. These are like the polar opposites of what I would expect to be a target audience. Why both of them and how both of them?
So what I noticed is that over agreeable and over assertive, these are the people who together create an elephant. If there are two over assertive people, they'll have a war. So now the war is very easy to sort out because everyone can see it. Everyone can see, everyone can feel it, and the war has to be stopped. Till war is going on, everything else will get stopped otherwise. So therefore, the over assertive people together fighting, will get over after some time. It may create a lot of maybe ashes or whatever, but it doesn't last long. So now you need two of these parties. Over aggressive guy would publicly maybe shout at one of the juniors, and typically over aggressive guy is someone who will show aggression when he has more power in the equation. So now that equation, in some peers, the power can be the sales guys feel more powerful than maybe the risk guys in some cases. So the whole idea is that you need two to tango for any conflict to sustain and remain unresolved. So therefore, my appeal to both sides is, even this side, is that you have to speak up and not just avoid the conflict and hope that things will work out. And for this person who's over aggressive, realize that if you remain over aggressive and just roughshod over other people, all the ownership will just come to you. So the ownership will accumulate to you, and you'll end up finally saying everyone is idiot and I have to work every day. But then you are not really going to have a great team. You will have list of followers who will fear you because you aggressively shut them down when needed. So basically that is how the design of the book is, that what are the benefits or benefits of for the over agreeable people to engage into conflicts, and what are the benefits for the over assertive people to not just create elephant and walk away. The over assertive people will create an elephant and walk away. They don't even realize that what they said would have made so much difference, unless someone comes and tells that what you said in this board meeting didn't go really well, did you realize that, etc. I don't have time for all these soft stuff. So my appeal to those people also, that this is not soft stuff, this is a key stuff for authenticity, leading to high quality relationships, leading to problems being solved faster, leading to a cohesive team performing better in for long term, not just one time. So I think that is the
Makes sense.
Hmm.
And I can relate it to what you said a little earlier in our conversation, where you mentioned that when you were doing those workshops, you would naturally gravitate towards the over agreeable person because that was almost like a personality type that you could personally relate to. But then you saw it more prudent to talk to the over assertive type and channelize the voice or the unheard voice of the over agreeable person and make sure that there was a conduit for them to hear that side of
Hmm.
the story, right? So it
Hmm. Hmm.
kind of makes
Hmm.
sense. It all very interestingly ties in together. Yeah.
Hmm.
Just to besides the personality types, who do you expect would benefit most from reading this book in terms of what role they play in an organization, in their life, in their career? Is it? I noticed that there are a lot of interviews by leaders. So is the book? Of course, a lot of people can benefit from it. Is it primarily for leaders to take cognizance of all these dynamics, which, as you rightly say, should not be dismissed as soft things, need to be things that are addressed if you want to have a more productive workforce? Who's the book for?
I think, see, the book is for leaders and aspiring leaders. And so my primarily I wrote it uh, for leaders who are leading teams. And so at least that's how all the examples and the case studies and stories have been on. And but even so primarily for leaders who have teams and who either have to ensure that the conflicts among their team members is resolved by empowering rather than them coming in. So I think my primary objective was that where leaders can actually pass on, empower their teams to resolve their conflicts themselves, and so that they are left with more time to do whatever they are meant to do. So that is the primary target. But having said that, it everyone has conflicts in their lives, and in one way or the other we keep leaving elephants around and keep either hoping that the elephant will disappear or you try to kill the elephant by your aggressiveness. Now this elephant multiplies. When you try to kill it, it will multiply like those Mahishasur or whatever. Uh, so I have noticed that there are people who keep trying to kill and be very right about it. This was a fact and this is what I said and what is your worry about. So I think that is the whole idea to uh, to address it to first to leaders and then to their teams.
Makes sense. And is that what happens? I'm assuming that though the book was almost like a culmination of a whole almost a decade of running workshops around a similar theme, you are planning to continue with workshops, meaning let's assume a leader reads this book and wants to actually implement it um, with his team, that is something that you would execute and run with them, first for them and for their team. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So we, in fact, in our we have our core workshop offering. We call it a change leader workshop. So change leader workshop has three elements. One is root, where you root yourself deeper, so that you can't be shaken very easily, and you connect with others deeper. And then you come to alignment with the overall universal force, that is the intent part. And third, and in fact third is the deeper one, which is conflict. How do you uh, engage with a conflict and resolve it rather than having it stay there? So we what I have learned is that conflict is a deeper thing to work, and you build this trust and root and the intention alignment, and then add the conflict piece on it, because then people can handle it. Conflict is a deeper subject, and in some
Correct.
cases we jump right away to so-called daring dialogues. How do you have daring dialogues with, and daring means the other side has more power in some sense. So even if the other side is your boss, client, investor, or the other side can be even a teenager, your teenager son or daughter who's not listening to you and shutting doors on you in the lockdown.
Oh, those are daring dialogues for sure. Yes.
Yeah, so I've had some one or two such cases where I heard that this 20-year-old girl is not listening to parents, and I actually got the parents, because parents reached out to me. I got them to fill this whole EAR from the perspective of each one of them with their daughter, and then I had a Zoom call with them to share what is going on, and gave some tips, and then finally said, now you have to have a daring dialogue with your daughter, whether she listens to you or not. But they did, and I think they substantially resolved. So this is my side, what you call side joy of realizing that it works there. In crucial relationship where the guy is a top leader at different place, but can't handle this at home. And so the same thing, the authenticity. So what I found, even in parents, I said, you have to authentically share your worry with the kid, that after me, I want you to be sustain yourself, and what you're doing is not going there, and therefore I am worrying that I have been a bad father, that I focused on my career more than you, and probably this is where we've come. So sharing that rather than telling him what he or she should do, not do, etc. So that
So
is the
true.
shift. That is basically sharing your anger and anxiety rather than acting your anger and anxiety. And that is what authenticity is.
Totally makes sense. And I think, if more parents were more authentic with their children, sometimes parents are scared to be authentic with their kids,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like I cannot demonstrate vulnerability. And the truth is you can. And I
Yes.
think that's kind of what you're alluding to. And I'm sure you get a great sense of satisfaction when you see these models and these ideas and thoughts essentially helping resolve what I would argue are equally, if not more important, conversations and breakdown in communication between a parent and a child and within a family. That must feel good, right? So
Yeah.
good for you, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any conflicts in the process of writing the book? Tell us, through that whole journey. You
I think
said the first seed was a couple of years ago. So here we are in 2021. So
I'll tell you the
let's peek
biggest
behind the curtain a little
the
bit. Yeah.
biggest conflict as the book was being written or going through different processes. Anytime I had a conflict which I could not resolve. So conflict with a client, with a partner, or with an employee, or with Ruchi, my wife. And I would start questioning myself, that who are you to write this book on conflict when you can't handle this conflict which is going on in your life? Right? Who
So
gave
the
you
classic case
authority?
of imposter syndrome, right?
So, and I said, okay, I'm a work in progress, and I think I'll be work in progress forever, and therefore I have right to bring out my work in progress as well to others, because some of them would be at a different stage of that work in progress, and why should I not give them a bridge to at least to the next work in progress level? And parallelly, I would then strive hard uh, to solve whatever that conflict was, and see, am I really applying this model, or was there more elements which I missed in the book? And one way or the other, what I noticed is that when you stay engaged, so one key thing which I've learned is, whenever there is an issue, increase bonding rather than running away from it. Lean in, and take some actions. And I think that has always worked. And you act despite the fear, act in spite of the fear, whatever you call it,
Yep.
and lean in.
Leaning in. No, totally can relate to that. Also that point you mentioned about imposter syndrome, right? Um, I recall something someone told me last year. This is someone who teaches online writing, and he was saying that when you're teaching somebody something, you don't need to necessarily be the absolute expert in that. In fact, it's good if you're not, right? We're all at various stages of getting there, whatever there is. As long as you're 10% better than the other person, or more experienced, or have introspected 10% more than the other person about somebody, about some subject, you have the right to communicate it. And from this conversation, I can gather it's not just 10%, it's far, far more than that. So if you haven't done so already, I would encourage you to quell and bury those doubts whatsoever, because you are going to see more conflict going forward, and
Yes.
each of those is going to shape how you help others resolve it, right?
Yes.
If anything, I think it helps. If you didn't have any conflict, I would worry, saying what gives
Yeah,
you the
yeah,
right to talk about
yeah, yeah.
conflict.
Mm. I think I totally agree to what you're saying. That in fact the conflicts which come now are deeper levels, because now you've crossed those versions of the video game. So now you play the next ones. Mm.
It's like the 10 levels of being a black belt, right? So the different levels of conflict. Coming back to our judo analogies.
Yeah.
Excellent. Hey, this has been amazing. I look forward to seeing the book in April when it's out. For the people who didn't drop a dumbbell onto their phone, or who had sufficiently charged their phone and are still here, do you mind showing us the book once again and telling us again where we need to go to get the book?
So the book
There it is.
is
High conflict, by conflict.
yeah. So
I'm going to use that
yeah,
as a
yeah.
bias.
In fact,
Bias.
it is high. High is yeah. High is either shake hand
Right.
or say hi, and buy is again yeah. You're right. So high conflict, buy conflict, and you can pre-order the book at www.highconflictbyconflict.com. And to know more about what the work I do is go to www.rohansingal.com. ROHANSINGAL.com.
RohanSingal.com. Excellent. And just a free suggestion there, when the second edition of the book comes out, which I'm sure will happen down the line, have that same Rohan Singal in a dapper suit, but against a backdrop of an elephant or something, because I think that would be pretty interesting
Uh,
too.
I think the second edition would surely be on relationships, personal relationships, because I had to cut the book somewhere that don't get into uh, other than work relationships, and because that itself then it would have made the book double the size, because if you put all the stories there of restoring friendships, restoring relationships, and I think most likely
Such a
that
natural
is
extrapolation of it, right? Yeah.
yeah, and maybe you can actually say yeah, natural extrapolation, and my real wish is that the freedom which I have felt in being authentic, and and the smile which has come on my face because of that, I would wish that and more for people in their life, and that you can really bring some amazing collaboration in your life, whether personal or professional, but it is not luck by chance. It is one dialogue at a time, one elephant at a time.
And that's how you get your 1 million Abhi, correct?
Yes, that is the idea. One person at a time.
No, it's a contagious. I know contagious is a bad word right now, but it's a contagious idea. This has been fun. It's been awesome having your authentic self. All the best, and I'm sure the book is going to do well. And I look forward to it transforming a lot of lives, not just in the workplace, but at homes as well. And I look forward to that next edition of the second half of the book, which is still in your head and not yet on paper, and that coming out in the future as well. All the
Yes,
best, my friend.
thank you very much, and it's been a total joy to be interviewed by someone so creative as you. And I also want to just place on record that Lux really is an amazing writer. In addition to being an amazing person, I have read his book NPAT, and very very worthwhile, a very meaningful book for anyone who's looking for a more purposeful, meaningful life.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, I think I have it behind
Yes.
me all the time. Name, place, animal, thing. Yes. Awesome.